Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. If you're going to start a do-it-yourself project or a large-scale building job, I keep telling you to start it at A.G. Hines Company, and there's a reason I do that. They were just awarded Supplier of the Year by the Associated General Contractors. Folks, this is a tremendous company. There's a reason they've been around for more than a century. That should be all I need to say. They've been around for more than a century. That's a good business. aghines.com to learn more. Right in the heart of downtown Knoxville, A.G. Hines Company. All right, welcome in the next two members of our panel. Right here, Vince Farrar, thanks for being with us.
Hey, John.
And right down there, back from a long hiatus, Dave Hooker from offthehooksports.com. You also have a book.
I do have a book.
You've written a book about the Tennessee 1998 National Championship?
Yes, that happened to be the year I graduated, which...
Rub that in.
Yeah, most people would have been like a doctor. But I took the 6-year plan and decided to write a book about it. But it's more about the football team and some behind-the-scenes stories that I enjoyed writing. It was a lot of fun. Inside
stories. And we've got we're going to have a reminder at the bottom of the screen so you can follow that to offthehooksports.com. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
All right. Yesterday, the NCAA Selection Committee revealed how they viewed the teams around the country and how they would set up the tournament if it were starting yesterday, or starting today, since they said it yesterday. Let's take a look at how they seeded the top 16 teams. You see Tennessee wound up as the number 6 seed overall. That put them as a 2 seed. And they got the Midwest, which we talked about last week. Detroit's actually the closest of all the regionals. You could do Los Angeles, Boston, Dallas, or Detroit, and Detroit is closer to Knoxville. But they put them, if this seeding held, they would be in the same area with Purdue, Tennessee, Baylor, San Diego State. The other 2 seeds, North Carolina, who they've played, Kansas, who they've played. The 1 seeds, Purdue, who they've played, UConn, Houston, and Arizona. And then you see the 3s and the 4s as well. In case you're wondering, I just said who they've played. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Tennessee, 3-3 against the other 15 top 16 teams in the country. They won at Wisconsin earlier in the year. They beat Illinois at home. They beat Alabama. They got another game with Alabama on the road coming up. Lost on a neutral site to Purdue, lost on a neutral site to Kansas, and then got that really bad start at North Carolina and were making a run until Dalton Knecht turned his ankle. But 3-3 against the very best teams in the country, so that's nothing to sneeze at. Let's take a look at one more thing. We always talk about you want to be top 25 in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency. Those are the teams that typically make it. This chart simply, if you're going up and down, the best defensive teams are at the top. So you see Houston is actually above Tennessee. You see that Auburn is above Tennessee, and you see Iowa State is above Tennessee. If you look at the other, and I don't know if that's the X or the Y, I'm not a math guy, but if you're looking at the one that goes left to right, that's the offensive rating, and there are several teams better than Tennessee. The good news is Alabama and Illinois are better than Tennessee offensively, but you've already beaten both of those teams. And then finally, let's take a look at where Jerry Palm and Joe Lunardi have them. Obviously, they put them in the same thing that the NCAA committee did. That'd be a 2 seed in the Midwest, but Lunardi has them playing Colgate with Colorado State and TCU waiting for them in Charlotte. Jerry Palm has them in Memphis playing Quinnipiac, and then either Washington State or Rick Barnes' old Texas team in the second round out there in Memphis. Mark, I'll start with you. How do you feel about the number 6 overall seed? Should they be higher? Should they be lower? Is that right?
I think it's about right. And I think where you're surrounded by North Carolina and a Kansas team that both beat you. So I think being in that 6th position is about where they should be.
Dave, thoughts on the seeding?
The seeding in and of itself, I thought Tennessee was a 5-6, possibly 7 team all along. So I got no problem with 6 right now at all.
Gentlemen?
I think it's about right. I think what stands out and what got a lot of fan reaction was being there with Purdue, who they had lost to. And they struggled early in the year when they went up against those dominant bigs. So I think that would maybe make some fans nervous if you would potentially match up with them like in a regional final. But I think 2 and a 2 seed as a number 6 overall is good right now. But I wouldn't rule them going up or down just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with the 6 seed. That's seemed to be where they deserve to be based on what they've done. They've had a couple of tough losses along the way. They've had some really good wins along the way. But I think given all the evidence and the stats that they use, I think a 6 seed's appropriate.
Path-wise, again, we talked about it a little last week. You believe more are you hot? What are the matchups? But in terms of fan travel, Detroit is a little easier than the other places. So
And I like the fact that you'd play Purdue again. I think there's.
You like that, okay.
I like the veterans of this ball club and a Ziegler type MO that says, hey, this team beat us and we get to play them again. And we got really nothing to lose because they already beat us. And yes, they've got a dominant big. He's going to be player of the year in the country. But I like the fact I'd rather play them than a UConn or Houston. Yeah. I'd rather have another matchup up against Purdue.
Another thing with Purdue is because they've had tournament disappointments, they're going to be carrying some pressure and expectation as well. So
that could
Tennessee.
That could be an interesting regional final. Those two programs that have a history of not getting where people think they're going to get to. To me, you're playing it. If you're worried about playing Purdue in a regional final, I think you've had a good tournament because they haven't put you in the Elite Eight for only for the second time ever.
That's right.
Right, and maybe I'm the only one, but I like the UConn matchup of potentially being up north. I mean, that's a basketball crazy area, so just to get more exposure for the program, I think that would make a lot of sense. I realize Detroit's slightly closer, but it's not too bad getting up to.
When you talk about big guys, I don't want to face UConn. UConn's got some bigs. They got some dogs at the guard position. They're battle tested.
They won the tournament last year.
I don't want a piece of UConn.
What about FAU? Now they had been in Tennessee's line on a couple of these things in terms of a second round matchup. If you saw a team like an FAU who knocked you out last year, I don't think they're the same team they were last year, but they may get on the same roll. Is that would you want to see that time team? You'd like to see Purdue again. Let me give you that as an example. If you saw FAU again, the team that booted you out, you'd want that.
100%.
Yeah, I'd rather play FAU in a rematch. Than
Yeah, I think that wasn't the question, but yeah, I think I would too.
they got my USF Bulls today for potentially first place in the conference. But I'll make a little case on Dallas though. There's a that's a very transplant heavy market. There's a big Tennessee fan base in that Dallas-Fort Worth.
But are we to the point that if Tennessee's going to make a run, they're going to have to beat some of those elite teams like UConn, and they're going to have to step up? If that's the next step for Rick Barnes, I mean, it feels like we just make the excuse he doesn't make the Final Four, but isn't that the next step? Doesn't that have to happen with him for his legacy?
I wouldn't disagree with that. Yeah, we've made that case before, that it is what it is once you get to tournament time. Personally, this looks like a great team. We've talked about on the radio with Will West that I think this team has a better Final Four shot for its offense, its defense. You've got Dalton Connect who can take over. You've got other guys, 3 other guys who may take over on a given night. All those reasons. I still would guess that this team ends in the Sweet 16 based on Barnes' history. That's if you made me put money on it, that's what I'm going to do. And I know it's going to make people mad, but that's where I would be at this point. Yeah. Where are you at this point?
Well,
You go to Elite Eight with this team or past it?
Can they get to the Elite Eight with
Not
this
can
team?
they, will they?
Yes. I'm going to go Elite Eight because I think Vescovy and James are going to continue to be better contributors than they were earlier.
Okay.
So,
will they?
I would say yes, at least the Elite Eight. A step forward.
At least. There we go.
Will they?
Elite Eight.
Will they?
I want to go Elite Eight, but when you start talking about making financial bets that you were joking about earlier, I'm like, that's my mortgage. So I would have to say Sweet 16, but I really want to say Elite Eight.
I'm big on history. I just look at the history.
Will the Tennessee football team win at Florida?
Oh, wait a minute. Exactly. And I always say no, and they never do. Exactly. All right. When we come back, Rick Barnes emptied his bench yesterday. We had a whole plan to talk about the fact that he hasn't been playing his bench, and we'll show you what he's done for the year, and it's basically what he does every year, and that's bench minutes are pretty low. Does he need to play guys more? Yes, it was good yesterday. Should that happen more often? And if so, who should play? And if he's not, is he creating flight risks for the transfer portal? Come on back on the Sports Source. That's it.